Hi, welcome to the video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy, and comment your thoughts and opinions on the stories. Let's get started. Am I the antagonist for not attending my son's graduation ceremony? My 38 male son, 19 male, recently had his graduation ceremony. I'm proud of him, since he's the first person in the family to graduate high school, both on my side of the family and his mother's. A few years ago my son had a bit of a religious phase. He started going to this weekly youth group thing with his friends at this church at the time, and picked up some Christian beliefs for a bit. His mother and I didn't really approve of it, since we are both non-religious. But we didn't really mind him exploring that route so long as he didn't start pushing it on us. As far as I know he fell off with that phase, but he got to know this pastor there, we'll call him John, that he still sees at said group. My son, without telling me he'd do so, invited him to come to the ceremony, and I really don't know what to think. I don't really have too much of a good relationship with religious people. My son having that religious phase didn't sit the best with me, since I used to attend a Narcotics Anonymous group in the past, and the entire religious aspect of it turned me away before I got help elsewhere. I didn't want to cause issue, so I sat him down and told him that with his ceremony it would either be me or John attending, and not both. He asked why I couldn't attend if John did, and I tried my best to express how uncomfortable I was being around someone as religious as him. He said he couldn't uninvite John, and that's when I told him I wouldn't be attending, since I didn't want to cause trouble. I feel bad for not being there on his big day, but I really didn't want to be in an uncomfortable position, or even worse, have that cause any trouble at the ceremony. I'm trying to show him how proud I'm of him, but since the ceremony nothing seems to have landed, and he's been feeling more distant than usual. Am I the antagonist? You're going to be absent from a significant event in your son's life, just because he invited someone significant to him, right? He is not trying to convert you, he is just inviting another Christian. If being around religious folks bothers you that badly, it's your own personal issue. Comment by team member Parker. Now for the top comments. AITA, you missed a milestone for nothing more than your own selfish reason. High school graduations aren't religious services, unless you chose to put him in a religious school, which I'm doubting. I'm an atheist, but it's important that I know not everyone is, and that's fine. Not religious anymore doesn't stop me from attending various religious events, whether Catholic, many flavors of Protestant, and occasionally Muslim, because most of my family is religious. Do I care about those events? Not at all. I care about my family though, and it's just a couple of hours waiting quietly in a corner. It's no big deal. I also fail to see what would stop from not interacting with John. Or if he really had to, keep it to a polite backquote hello, nice to meet you, goodbye. AITA, you could have taken the adult route and been civil while ensuring your son's day remained about him. Instead you acted like a child and made it about you. I don't get the comment about causing trouble at the ceremony, like, were fists going to fly if you saw John? AITA up if you couldn't put your discomfort aside to celebrate your son's achievement. You sound selfish and immature, and unless John tried forcing you to get baptized or something, it was an overreaction on your part. Are you jealous or threatened by John or men like John? The only good thing about you not going is that you showed your son your true character, so now he will know to not expect much from you. Ironically, you've probably pushed your son closer to John with your stunt. Am I the antagonist for not wanting to pay my husband's siblings their share of the house? I know the title sounds completely terrible, but hear me out, and I'm not looking for legal advice. Also throwaway account, I'm also not a vet, despite the username lol. My 30th husband's 30 male father died when he was young, and his mother died a few years back, leaving the house not paid off to next of kin, which divided it between his two siblings, F26, male 27. When she passed, I was still in school. My husband brought up the idea a few months after she passed that we remodel the house when we had the money and make that our home for life. I agreed, and the siblings were fine with it. My husband had been paying the mortgage a few years before his mother passed, and never making his siblings pay a dime. Even after I moved in, I never made them pay since we wanted them to be able to get on their feet, go through school, get adult jobs, and not feel burdened by money since my husband and I were planning on staying there long term anyways, and we could afford it without them. When I graduated, I worked a lot and picked up a lot of odd to pay my loans back in a year to be debt free. We both saved up to pay for our wedding. After, I picked up a lot of odd to stash for our remodel, as well as pay down the mortgage. The mortgage is finally almost paid off completely. The siblings are talking about moving out, and my husband and I are talking about trying for a baby. My husband then brought up how we are going to pay his siblings their share of the house, about 40k each, since it was left to all three of them. I told him I hadn't thought about it, and if we could pick up the conversation at a later date. I'm just so upset because I've been working so hard to be debt free and save for our potential child, Ren, and retirement and maybe a vacation home in the future. And now thinking about shelling out another 80k when we never made them pay one time for anything makes me want to cry. So, am I the antagonist for not wanting to pay them? TLDR, husband's parents are dead. House belongs to him and 2 siblings. Husband and I decided to live at the house for our lives. Siblings never paid a dime while living there. I paid off my loans, wedding, mortgage, and home remodel from overtime the past few years. Now have to give 80k to them. He would have to buy out each sibling's corresponding third if the house were bequeathed to them evenly. To resolve this, you must hire an attorney. Always have a written strategy for how your investment and any resultant equity will be handled before investing in a home that you don't fully own. You cannot charge the home's owners rent. The options would have been to buy them out or sell the house in the beginning if they were unable to pay their portion of the mortgage. When buying a property, most people do not have the privilege. Comment by team member Cody. Now for the top comments. Info. What is the basis for the 80k? Is that 2/3 the value of the home as it stands? 2/3 of the principal paid off on the mortgage at time of inheritance? How did we arrive at $80k? Info. Is a 40k each reflective of the value they inherited in the house at the time of your Phil/mother-in-law's death? Or is the house currently worth 120k? Info. None of this makes any sense. Did the mortgage just transfer from the deceased mother to the heirs? Why did your debt-free plan prioritize paying off a mortgage that wasn't yours on a house that wasn't yours without formalizing plans with the owners? Why should the siblings give up their inheritance because they lived in their home rent-free? Did you ever tell them the upkeep would be deducted from their share? How did you calculate the 80k payout? Why is your overtime relevant here? Am I the antagonist letting my little brother eat whatever he wants when I was babysitting him? My F21 parents told me to babysit my brother, M8, for a few hours. He asked me if he could eat an ice cream, but he had already eaten one today and we were gonna eat dinner in an hour, so I told him no and offered some fruit instead. He told me he won't listen to me because I'm not his parent, and when I stopped him from eating ice cream he started crying. My parents came home to find him crying. We told them both sides of the story and they took his side, gave him an ice cream, and called me a cruel sister to make him cry. Next day they left him with me again. I told them I don't want to babysit, but they know I'm not gonna leave him unsupervised, so they just left. He asked me for another ice cream, and I decided not to be the cruel sister anymore and said sure, go ahead. That day I let him eat whatever he wanted. He ate an ice cream, a bag of chips, an Oreo and a soda. When my parents came back they were furious and called me an a-hole for letting him eat so much junk food, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do when he doesn't even listen to me. Your brother won't pay attention if your parents are trying to undermine you. That much is true. When you are watching him, you need your parents' respect, so let them know that they must watch out for you if it helps. My sister isn't as much of a brat these days, so they get over it. Comment by team member Parker. Now for the top comments. NTA. Lol. What did your parent expect? They didn't react properly when you didn't let your brother have ice cream. I just did what you said I should have done yesterday. If you don't like it, don't leave him with me. Then spend as much time away from the house as you can, especially if you know they are planning to go somewhere. NTA calmly tell your parents that you will not babysit your brother because they have undermined your authority, making this not only an unsafe situation. When they are not home, your brother is rude to you and tells you that he won't listen to me because I'm not his parent, making you completely ineffectual, which is a situation they have created. But also it is an abusive no-win situation for you. Their reactions show that when you either 1 saying no or 2 not saying no and letting him do whatever he wants, both end up with them shouting at you that you are not prepared to do favors, where the reward is getting shouted at by them and having your brother behave badly because they have made him aware that they will always take his side and you will be blamed for his behavior. Say that they either need to pay someone else to babysit or they need to back you up when you do it. If they don't trust you enough to be reasonable in applying restrictions, then they shouldn't leave him with you. If you don't want to do that, as soon as he starts, phone them. Say, brother says he doesn't have to listen to me. You need to come back. Brother is tucking into a third ice cream, you need to speak to him. Brother has just done X. When they say you need to deal with it, you remind them that they have undermined you to the point that it is not possible for you to. If brother asks you for anything, tell him to call them for a decision. Am I the antagonist for still being mad that my brother stole my daughter's name for his own child? A year ago my brother and his wife announced that they were having a baby, and after they found out the gender they let everyone know they had picked a name, but were not going to announce it until the baby girl was born. At one point they told someone a fake name so all our relatives would stop guessing, and when their little girl was born they told us her real name. I'm not giving the real name, but let's say it was Emily. The problem was, I already had a daughter that was a year old at this time, whose name was very similar. Basically Emily. The names were so close they sound the same when speaking them, unless you are listening for specific emphasis, like Zara and Sarah, or Stephen and Stephen. It's not like I called dibs or wanted to use the name in the future. My daughter was already named. My wife and I were a bit shocked and thought they had said the literal same name as our own little girl, just with a different middle name. My brother corrected us and said it's different. Emily is spelled completely different from Emily. It didn't seem like the time or place to argue semantics, it being the day of the little girl's birth, so we didn't press the issue. Besides, we could see that the birth certificate was already completed and submitted, so it would be hard to change her name, even if they wanted to. Several other extended family members expressed the same confusion over how close the two names were. A few days later we had a conversation addressing the name problem. We suggested, so the little girls would not be confused, and so they could each have their own distinct names, that Emily could go by her middle name, or a nickname. Emily already knew her name, and it would be more difficult for her to adjust to being called something different. And besides, she's got a year's worth of precedence. My brother gives a non-committal agreement and says they could figure out some way to differentiate the two names. We move on. Apparently the best way he thought to achieve this was to call my daughter the other Emily, which we do not agree with at all. The problem is he and his family see our parents more often because they live significantly closer. So now my daughter, the original one with the name, is called the other Emily by my family. It had gotten to the point where I try not to let the two little girls spend time with each other so my daughter doesn't get called by the wrong name. We refuse to call our daughter by anything other than her name and Heather, but she had the name first. She's not the other anything. Conversation a couple of times. I love my niece. I just hate the way she is named the same as my daughter. It ruins every family get together, and I'm told to stop bringing it up. I can't make them change her name, but I won't let them bump my daughter out of her name either. Am I the antagonist? The name the other Emily is awful. Family is not necessary for you. When you visit, just take your folks to a restaurant or the park. She is not different. She is her own darn person, and the two kids ought to be treated equally. Comment by team member Alex. Now for the top comments. Honestly, I'd be mad if my family called me the other my name, like fuck off. NTAWTF is wrong with calling them Dan's Emily and Fred's Emily, or even be Icelandic about it and call them Emily Dan's daughter and Emily Fred's daughter. Other Emily is alienating af. I'd be cutting them out of my life over that. Wibta, if I told my ex-husband my concerns about his GF. My ex-husband and I are in our early 40s and late 30s and have been divorced for almost 3 years now. While he did not want to get divorced, we separated and have been co-parenting our 2 preteens amicably. He lives within 5 blocks of our old home, and while we have 50-50 custody, our kids freely bounce between our places and choose how they want to spend holidays. We've tried hard to create a sense of stability despite the change in our family situation, and have standing tune-up therapy twice a year to make sure we are all comfortable with the arrangements. His recent partner Mariah, 29F, has been the only one to make past the 6-month mark, and prior to this encounter I would say that she makes him happy and is a pretty reasonable lady. She has a very sweet and precocious son, 9, whose father was never in the picture. We all adore him, and generally I thought things were going well. I invited Mariah to bring her son to my place if she would like him to join my kids in private language classes. She accepted, and this has been going on for a few weeks now. My kids adore him. Last week she said something to me that was surprising. She asked me when I would be moving my things out so that my ex and her could be able to cohabitate. I was taken aback and confused, asking her to clarify my current home. This home? And she nonchalantly told me, you don't need all this space for 3 people. We wouldn't have space at ex's current condo. Her son looked so awful and embarrassed at this point that I was like, UHH. This conversation would need to include my ex. My kids and I live in a brownstone that my ex and I purchased together 50-50, but that I have been renovating since before the divorce. My ex lives in a nice condo that's spacious, but is still a little bit of a man cave. Later in the evening I got a text message from her son that was pleading for me to forgive his mom, that he's sorry for his mom and to not tell my ex. I feel awful, but I think I should let my ex know this conversation occurred and let him handle it. Would I be the antagonist if I told my ex-husband my concerns about his GF? Edit. I'm the single owner of the house. My ex insisted throughout the divorce that I keep it. We do co-own his condo though, haha. You must tell your ex about this and text him about it. She shouldn't have included her 9-year-old in this embarrassing chat. Even if she was writing the text after he went to bed or whatever, it's quite disturbing. Comment by team member Taylor. Now for the top comments. NTA, your ex-husband should be the one having that conversation, so you absolutely need to share this with him. Weird that the 9-year-old has a better emotional gauge than his mom though. He's a special kid in the best way, very mature and advanced for his age. YWNBTA, and I'm alarmed that a 9-year-old is already conditioned to apologize for his mother's behavior. I suspect girlfriend used her son's phone to manipulate the situation. Am I the antagonist for not cancelling my wedding to make my fiance's mom happy? I, 36F, was engaged to my fiance, 30 male, since late last year. We are about to get married in a month. My fiance came from a background that do not encourage getting married from outside their race. So ever since we got engaged we never received any support from his family, especially his mom. We don't live in the same country as his parents, so it was easy to navigate at first, and my fiance was still hoping his parents will change their mind. However, his dad started an affair that has made his mom more miserable. No matter how much my fiance tried to change her mind, she is firm not to approve our marriage. With only 1 month to go before the wedding, my fiance talked to her and she told him she is going through depression and won't make it if he chooses to still get married. My fiance is now thinking if we should cancel the wedding to make his mom happy. I told him that she is emotionally blackmailing him to get what she wants, and that I'm not going to cancel the wedding since nothing will change her mind about us. My friend said that my remarks might have been too insensitive considering my life will be miserable if I don't get along well with my in-laws. I feel like she will never support our marriage, but was I the to express that statement to my fiance? If your fiancé wants to postpone the nuptials, that is his problem. If it really is his concern at all, he can have your backing or not, and vice versa. He isn't fully dedicated to you both if he is hesitant because of his mother. Comment by team member Jordan. Now for the top comments. NTA. His reaction to the current situation will set the tone for your entire marriage. Pay attention to how he reacts. This times 1,000. I asked for my future in-laws' blessing when I proposed, but even specified in the letter I was asking for their blessing, not their permission. I said it was important to me to have their blessing, but no matter their response I was going to marry her, because I love her, and the only person who could stop me from spending the rest of my life with her is her. The fact that this woman's fiancé is even broaching the idea of not getting married to appease his prejudiced mom is a huge red flag. NTA. Not everyone needs to get along with their in-laws. Besides, if they, your mother-in-law in this case, live in another country, I highly doubt she'll ever visit. And if she does, it wouldn't be as often. You're right. She's blackmailing him to get what she wants. NTA. But you need to tell your fiancé that backing out of this means the relationship is really in trouble. Because I hope you respect yourself to draw the line here, that either he commits to your future, or he can be with someone his mom picked. His family is not going to come around and be less prejudiced. Unfortunately, even if you accommodate his mom, when you try to take the next step in your relationship again it will be something else. And every mistake you ever make will always be because you're not the right type of person for the family / like those people, and that's why she didn't support the marriage. She is never going to let it go, and she will always hold it over you in some way. But you and your fiancé can decide to build a life that doesn't have room for that nonsense. The only way forward is this: you two talk and discuss how you can be a united partnership in your relationship and what that means for the relationship with your families. Because your relationship with each other is more important than anything to building your life together. And if he's wavering because of his mother, then he isn't 100% committed to you both. And it means that, realistically, you're never going to be respected as someone with your own thoughts and wishes in the family. You will always be the doll they didn't want, and who he couldn't support enough to marry on the day you'd agreed upon. This is not to mention the loss of $ for cancelling and rescheduling bookings, losing any time you scheduled off for work, etc.